Alright, so I am back, and today we're going to do another rant of the week. Sort of. Kind of a new thing I'm kind of doing. I don't know. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about something that's been on my mind, which is usually what I do for rant of the week. Anyway, I'm kind of rambling. What I want to talk about is the first three Michael Bay films. And, you know, some of them get shit. Some people like some of them. Some people don't like some of them. Some people absolutely hate one of them in particular, Revenge of the Fallen. Some people don't like the first one. Some people think the first one's the best. Some people say the third one's the best. Anyway, we're going to talk about the first three movies in the Michael Bay trilogy. Now, for me, I've actually got notes this time. For me, I think it was probably done by accident. But I think the original three movies is actually genius, writing wise. If you look, it's got its flaws, of course. But if you look at the overall plot that the Decepticons would have to have, which I'm going to put my own little kind of spin on it, kind of like a fan theory, which makes it even better for me. Anyway, I don't know what you guys would think about it, so that's why I'm doing this video. So we'll see if you guys approve of my fan theories. I have never read any of the comics. I've never really watched any of the backstories of the movies, so I don't know if this is actually canon or not, so whatever. But the way the first three movies flow, when you actually watch, if you watch all three, and then you kind of put the timeline together in order, it makes a lot more sense in the way I'm going to kind of put it. You know, some liberties are definitely taken. So I don't know if it was, but I don't know if like Bay actually sat there, Bay and his writers, because of course he doesn't write the whole movies. You know, he's the director. He's got his team of writers, and he just kind of puts his flair into it. But it's hard to say that, like, if from the beginning they had thought this out the way they did. I would guess not, because it's a little over convoluted for them to do it. But then they were able to tie it together with a few fan theories. It turns into this actually really coherent plot. You know, and we're talking about the Transformers here, not the humans. The humans are just kind of there. Although they are a part of the story, and a critical part in some points. So yeah, let's get this one going. And so what I'm going to do for my theory, and it's kind of like a overview of the three movies. And I'm only talking about the first three movies here. This has nothing to do with Age of Extinction or The Last Night. I still have not seen The Last Night, so I have no idea what happens in that one. I'm sure explosions, American flag, and beer. And some hot girl running around. Wild guess, but it's a Bay film. So this week we're going to be talking about this. Next week we will do the Veer Comets at some point. Try to get that up as around the weekend, early week next week. And then the week after, I will do my thoughts, like a rehash of my thoughts on Age of Extinction. I will put myself through hell and watch Age of Extinction again for the purpose of this. And then I will watch The Last Night. And then I will talk about the Bumblebee movie. So that'll be the plot for the next rant of the week, is the Bumblebee movie, Age of Extinction, and The Last Night. And we'll kind of see where my thought process is at that point. But we're going to talk about the first three movies, because if he would have ended at the 3, I would have been really happy, because Age of Extinction really kind of just takes it up. All right, so we're going to talk about the timeline. So I've kind of pieced it together as best I can off of memory. I didn't want to sit here and rewatch the trilogy, but I've watched the movies quite a bit, so I think I've got it pretty much down. So in the beginning, there was a cube, and that made all the Transformers and the Primes, probably Cybertron entirely, or maybe crashed somewhere and created it that way. So this is where the Transformers history begins, and as Prime states in one of the movies, they put all their they were putting all their history in the cube. So this is the ancient Cybertronians, the Primes, the Fallen, all of that. So they're putting all their knowledge into the cube. Later, most likely due to expanding their race, and due to energy supply shortages, they create the Sun Harvester and the Matrix. And so they were going from planet to planet, finding the sun, and they agreed that it would be uninhabited planet, and they would harvest the sun and use the energy from that to expand their race. So the Primes betrayed the Fallen. Now I say Primes betrayed the Fallen, not Fallen betrayed the Primes, because Fallen was just doing what he was supposed to do, which is harvest the sun. And just because it happened to have human life, which at the time, if you watch the movie, they were, pretty unevolved. So I could easily see him thinking the humans aren't worth saving. Maybe they were desperate for energy, or maybe he just is like, look, I don't care about these little things. They're the little monkeys. Let's just wipe them out. But anyway, the Primes decided they didn't want to do it. So they took the Matrix and they hid. They died saving the Matrix from the Fallen. So the Fallen can't find the Matrix now. Now, what was clear, if you watch, if you remember the second movie, is at some point, before they killed themselves, the Primes were able to tell the cube where the Matrix is. So that's critical, because that's what gets put into Sam's head. So that's why Sam's like, oh, hey, I know where the cube is, even though it's in ancient Cybertronian. Or I know where the Matrix is. So then the war begins. And most likely it was due to the wanting to have the control of the cube. So those that followed the Primes, the Autobots at this point, are trying to protect the cube from the Decepticons' hands. Most likely, again, because the cube has the knowledge of where the Matrix is. And with the Matrix, they can use the Sun Harvester. Apparently they can't make a new Matrix, and apparently they can't use the Sun Harvester without it. So they have to have the Matrix. So to get the Matrix, they have to get the cube. They have to have the map to get to the treasure. The cube has its own abilities that allows them to create life and all this other stuff and repair them. So it's also a pretty critical thing to have. But the Matrix seems to be the end plan in my mind. So this is where my fan theories start coming in. So Sinal Prime. Now he says in the third movie that a deal had to be struck with Megatron in order to save the race, because the Autobots were losing the war. So it's like, okay, that makes sense. But you put a little spin into this, and it fits into the story. So he was the one that's creating the space bridge technology. So my theory is he used the space bridge technology to transport the cube off of Cybertron. I can't imagine something that big just falling off the planet and everyone forgets where it went. And obviously it was on the planet because it had the knowledge of where the Matrix was. So it had, and the war began most likely over power, like it did in G1. If they had power, they wouldn't, if they had Energon, they wouldn't be waging the war. That's what G1 war was about. That's what I'm assuming this war was about. Control the cube and to get power. So he betrays the Autobots, and then he could use the space bridge technology to send the cube to Earth, because he knows the Sun Harvester and the Matrix are on Earth. Otherwise, it's just a big coincidence that everything ends up landing on Earth. But this way, it's like, okay, I'm going to put the cube on Earth. That's the map of where the Matrix is. And maybe he knew where exactly the Matrix was, and he was keeping that information to himself and not the Decepticons, because, he's got to be useful to the Decepticons. He can't just be, like, oh yeah, I'm a Decepticon now, and they'll be like, oh yeah, we're gonna trust you. But also, my other theory on this is that, and it makes sense, because if you look at like Jetfire, for example, he has space bridge technology. So Sentinel must have been experimenting on Decepticons to give them that space bridge technology to transport, and then he sent the Seekers to Earth. I'm thinking Sentinel has been a part of the Decepticon plan from almost the beginning. Because I could easily see him being, and he was in the third movie, his goal is the protection of the race. And so the cost of human lives is nothing to his race. If you think of it in terms of, like, humans, imagine, okay, you're trying to save a city, do you destroy the ant farm down the hill? If you destroy the ant farm, the city is saved, including your family. Yeah, are you going to bat an eye at destroying the ant farm? Or even if it's a small animal, like, a little mouse family. Kill all the mice and save all the people in the city and your family. Yeah, I'm killing the mice. So, and the Decepticons knew where the Sun Harvester is, so they know Earth. They didn't, like, just forget. The Autobots seem to forget, and this is another reason why I think Sentinel has been working with the Decepticons for a long time, because being in the leader position, he's able to control the knowledge, similar to like what happened in the Beast Wars. In the Beast Wars, the council, the Maximal Council, had ruled it that the knowledge of what happened with Starscream and Megatron and Galvatron was deemed unfit for the general populace to know. Because Starscream had the indestructible spark, which the Maximals scientists later used to try and create Rampage. So they blocked all that information from the general populace so that people wouldn't know it. So Sentinel would be controlling the knowledge. He would tell them that, oh, we don't know where the Sun Harvester is. The Decepticons know where it is, but the Autobots didn't. They didn't know it was there. Autobots were just surprised to find out that the Transformers had been on Earth prior to them. So Optimus is over here like, wait, what? But also, and a lot of people chop this up to, like, a racial kind of thing with the twins not being able to read. But they're talking about ancient Cybertronian. Bumblebee couldn't read it either. So nobody could read the ancient Cybertronian that Sam was seeing in his head. Now, whether or not you find the twins racist, that's on you. And that's not something I'm going to talk about here. But what I'm saying is that goes into what my theory of Sentinel controlling the information that's going to the Autobots. You stop allowing them to know how to read ancient Cybertronian, then nobody's going to be able to read it. Then only the Decepticons and him can cipher of where the Matrix is. Makes sense. I mean, Wheelie knew what it was right off the bat. He saw it and he's like, oh, that's ancient Cybertronian. We need to find an older Decepticon and he'll know where to go. And they go to Jetfire, and Jetfire's like, oh, it's right there. So anyway, So Sentinel's the one that, in my theory, sent the cube to Earth. Now the Decepticons start arriving on Earth with two agendas: find the Matrix, and because they know where the Sun Harvester is, so they don't need to secure it. But they probably are the ones that helped the Egyptians bury it, or built it for the Egyptians, the big pyramids, over the Sun Harvester to hide it. And they also start infiltrating humans to make sure that they are in control of them if needed. But also set up a backup plan where the humans would be a slave labor force. Makes sense. So Megatron gains knowledge of where the cube is located. Probably from Sentinel, because that's why everybody's racing after the glasses, because the glasses have the information on where the cube is. So Megatron already knew his trajectory. That's what imprinted on the glasses in the first movie. He knew where the cube is. So somebody, in my theory, had to tell him where it is. Here's the map of where the cube is. Fallen's over here ruling the Decepticon race, and Sentinel's controlling the Autobots, so Megatron's actually not useful at the moment, so it's like, hey Megatron, go secure the cube. Here's the locations, and he goes there, and he gets thrown off course and lands in the Arctic and freezes. So he knew where it was. He wasn't searching for the cube, because you could see in the movies, they can go in and out of Earth out of Earth without any problem. So if he was searching for it, he wouldn't have found it and then crashed. That doesn't make sense. But he probably knew where it was and crashed because he didn't realize the magnetic pull of Earth. All right, so now we get back into the war. Now during the war, Sentinel's ship, the Ark, I believe it was the Ark. I can't remember now. But they they load up with the Autobots and they fly off of Cybertron with the space bridge. Now it gets damaged and it crashes on the moon. Now, this is where it's a little unclear on if Sentinel had planned for the ship to get damaged that much and crash, but most likely I would assume so. Because he needed to make sure that none of the Autobots on the ship survive, because then every Autobot on the ship would be somebody that would be, against his plan later. So and it's, again, it's kind of suspicious that he crashes on the moon. Every Autobot on the ship is dead, with the exception of Sentinel, who's in stasis. So he probably staged the damage to the ship as severe as it is. But the plan, had all the plan gone... well, we'll get into that in a second. And then later on, the Decepticons take over the moon. They secure the Autobot shuttle. They get all the pillars out, aside from the one Sentinel has. And they're also taking over Earth systematically, like... making it so it's like, oh, it's no longer financially feasible to get to the moon. They're making little changes throughout her Earth history. But also think of this. Here they are on this planet of humans, and while they don't know where the cube is, and they don't know where Megatron is, they're probably able to detect real quick that the humans are using Megatron to create our technology. They're backwards engineering him so that they can create all our technology, the cars, computers, everything. If that's what's going on, then it would be safe to assume the Decepticons would put their hands in it to make sure that all the technology that the humans are building are compatible with Decepticons. And that's why when the cube was working in the first and second movie, and it activated all the technology when the Pepsi machine, the steering wheel, the Xbox, and the kitchen appliances, they all had red eyes. They were all Decepticons. They were all built off of Megatron's design. So, of course, they're all going to be Decepticons. So, then, if you think of it in terms like that, Soundwave, who was clearly on Earth for a long time, has just had the humans build an entire army of Decepticons ready to go. All he has to do is activate the cube. Alright, so, now the overall plan. Here's the overall plan, if you put it all together. Had Megatron stayed on course, then he would have located and secured the cube. Then with this cube, he would have found the Sun Harvester and the Matrix. And using the Matrix, he would have revived Sentinel, if needed. It depends on if Sentinel would have been knocked out by accident or on purpose or whatever. But then he would use the space bridge. Sentinel would use the space bridge, which is his technology, and only he can activate it. So they do need Sentinel for this, to bring Cybertron to Earth and rebuild it with all the power and materials that they would be gained, setting up a new golden age for the Transformers, where rather than traveling planet to planet to take energy, they now can transport the entire planet and Decepticon fleet any part of the galaxy at any time. And they would be able to leave stations behind. So it's like Earth would become a permanent Decepticon battle station, and they would go galaxy to galaxy because they don't need the sun, but they would conquer the galaxy just by transporting cyber. I mean, imagine that. Here you are, on your home planet, and then all of a sudden a new planet just pops up into your solar system with an entire Decepticon fleet with it, and it's like, we are here to take your sun. And then then the Sun Harvester wouldn't even have to go on planet to planet. It could be on Cybertron, and they could just harvest every sun as they go, bringing the energy directly into Cybertron rather than having it go to a planet and then taking it. But then they could also go to the planets and strip it for any resources they may need, metal or whatever you might need. It would just be, they would be unstoppable at this point. It's a genius Decepticon plan, if that's what it really was. And then here comes the backup plan. Since Megatron and Sentinel were both out of the picture, the cons kept looking for the cube, their leader, and the Matrix with no luck until the glasses went on eBay. Then they located the cube, and Megatron needed... Okay, so Megatron needed to secure the cube immediately because he didn't want the Autobots to have it or destroy it. And that's why he went into that full attack in the first movie. Was because it's like, I need this fucking cube now. I can't let the Autobots gain control of it for a moment. Because Optimus even said that if it got too real, he would just put it in his own spark and kill it. So it's like, Megatron's like, no, we have to keep the cube alive. And that's why he did what he did in the first movie. And then the second movie, the cube was destroyed, which, by the way, I don't think the shard that Sam had would have revived Megatron like people think, but it just gave him the knowledge of where the Matrix is. And then the bigger shard, that's what was able to bring Megatron back. But anyway, so once the cube was destroyed, then the next focus became on... they knew that humans were now a threat, because the humans are what killed Blackout in the first movie. And you saw in the second movie what they did to Devastator. So now it was more of a, let's not just secure it, we have to use the Sun Harvester now. Because if you use the Sun Harvester now, you take the humans out of the equation, they're dead. And now it's just a handful of Autobots against the entire Decepticon army. Which, remember, they sent a few down for the second movie, but there's still an army in hibernation on the moon. So, they could have really laid waste. But it's also like, why would we go and send all these things into Earth, into this big battle zone, when we know that we're going to get, our asses handed to us by the humans? So then once the Sun Harvester and the Matrix and the Fallen were all destroyed, that's what we went into the far backup plan of bringing Cybertron to Earth and turning the humans into a slave labor force to rebuild the planet. So it's like, if you look at the big plan, it's like, it was genius. If you put a little bit of my spin in there. Because everything kind of just flows together. Now, of course, like I said, who knows if the writers thought of it that way. They were probably just writing it like, oh, hey, we're going to make a blockbuster. But they kind of stumbled into a point where it's like, okay, you know what? This is actually really good writing. Of course, the humans weren't very good. You know, you throw in the human stuff in there. You know, there's issues there. But overall, you know, when you think of it in those terms, and then you watch those three again, it turns that trilogy into a really good trilogy. And I've always loved those movies. I thought they were very well done. You know, Shia LaBeouf is, you know, he's him, and the humans are the humans, and of course, you know, there's that stuff, and it's just like, some of that's just like a little too far out there. But overall, I thought that it was actually really good Transformer stories. It really was, especially if you put it all together in that terms. Revenge of the Fallen, I know everybody hated it. I loved it. I loved the first one. I loved the second one even more. I went and saw Revenge of the Fallen the first time, and then me and my friend that saw it, we turned around and we went right back in and watched it again. And then afterwards we went right over to Walmart, and I spent an entire paycheck on buying all the Revenge of the Fallen toys because they all came out that day and where we were. So there were piles of them, and I just bought all of them. I mean, there were the boxes in the back of things that they were getting ready to stock. So we're over there opening up the boxes, just like, oh, I don't have the Ravage. Oh, I need the Brawl. I need this. I need this. Oh man, I need, you know, oh, get the Starscream, the Megatron, Optimus. I mean, we bought everything we could. I mean, it was crazy. It was like Christmas. And then Dark of the Moon, the toys absolutely sucked, so I didn't get very many of those. They were just horrible. Just disappointment on the toys for that line, because they made them smaller. That mech tech weapons or whatever they were, and that's when my hatred of the Bay films began. Not because of the movies, but because of the toy lines. Because we never got all the Constructicons. If you watch Revenge of the Fallen, there's a number of Constructicons that were there that were never made into toys. And I'm not talking about the Devastator, because I don't think the Devastator was actually meant to be the Constructicons. Devastator was just so big, he had to be split up into different vehicles. So that's one entity, because you see the Constructicons are still in combat on the, you know, just a little ways away. So it can't be, you know, the same team. So it's just a whole nother team of Decepticons over there. But we never got all the Constructicons. I think there were supposed to be like 7 of them, and I think we got like 3. And you look at the third movie, I mean, we never got all the Dreads. You know, finally we got the second Dread with the studio series. We never got the dog one. We got a jet one, which, whatever. You know, I always thought that was a cool concept. You know, we get all the Autobots, we don't get all the Decepticons. There was a number of Decepticons, yeah, that were unnamed, but we never got them. We should have gotten the leader class Shockwave, that's for sure, and he should have had that big worm with him. Oh, did we get all the Wreckers? I can't remember. I know the Human Alliance didn't really get all the Wreckers. And one of the twins didn't really get all the Human Alliance. But it just, you know, that's where it really started, like, tanking for me. Where I'm like, oh, this sucks. And then Age of Extinction came out, and they said, oh, we'll make all of the characters in the movie. And it's like, no, you're not. Because they never did. If you look at what was available in Age of Extinction and what was available toy-wise. For example, Drift, he was supposed to be a triple changer. It was a triple changer in the movie. He went from car to helicopter to robot. So they cheaped out and made one repaint helicopter as him and then one car as him. Like 2 different molds for each mode. It's like, that's cheap. You can't make a triple changer here. They never made a Stinger. They repainted Bumblebee, I think, in Takara, but they never gave it to the U.S., even though they promised they would. And all the other random Decepticons that were killed at the end of the movie, never got them. It's like nothing. You got like you got Galvatron and Lockdown. I think that's all the Decepticons you got from the entire Age of Extinction line. And it's like, really? Wow. 2 Decepticons for an... Oh, no. There was... No, Barricade didn't come out then. No. That was last night. So yeah, I'm gonna watch Last Night and Age of Extinction again. I think I own Age of Extinction, but it's actually still in the wrapper. Yep. I bought it on Black Friday a couple of years ago. And so that's why it's got the promo on it. I've never opened this. I think I bought it for like $2 or something like that. So it's like, you know what? I would say that movie's worth $2. Now, if I could go back in time and stop myself from seeing it in theaters, that'd be a different story. But we'll go into those movies in more detail on the next Rant of the Week. So I'll let this go up for about a week or so, and we'll do kind of some viewer responses, and we'll go from there.